There are many things you don't know about banks, some of which can benefit you, while others can leave you bankrupt. Let me ask you something. Do you know how banks work? What do they do with your money when you deposit it in an account? How do they make money, and how can you make money too? Today, I'm going to reveal 5 secrets about money that banks don't want you to know, because if everyone knew these secrets, it could be the end of the banking system. Number 1. Leaving your money in a bank is losing it. What do you think if I ask you how much interest you would get if you save your money in a bank? You might think at least a little bit, right? But when you look at the numbers, it's not the case. The biggest banks like Citibank offer less than 0.5%. Some banks offer more, but they don't even reach 1%, especially because interest rates are at their historical minimum. I think your money grows by 0.5%, while inflation is at 3.3%. The value of your wealth decreases every year. It's better to use that money today than to keep it in a bank. The purchasing power of your money in a few years will be much lower than it is now, especially when inflation spikes, like it has in recent times, causing prices of assets, such as houses or stocks, to rise significantly. A bank is a place to store your money, not to make it grow. Number 2. Any bank can create money out of thin air. You may not believe me when I say that banks create money, because the only bank that can do it is the Federal Reserve, the one that issues the dollar and the only one with the right to that printing machine. However, the banking system works in such a way that all banks in the country, or even the world, can create money up to a certain limit, depending on how much money people have deposited in that bank. Suppose you deposit $1,000 in Bank X. What do you think that bank will do with your money? It's not in their interest to keep it, and they couldn't even pay you the paltry 0.5% they offer you. So the bank lends your money to someone else who wants to buy a car or a house and charges them interest rates that are many times higher than the 0.5% they give you. The average interest rate on a credit card is 20%, which is dozens of times higher than what the bank gives you. The point is, the bank won't tell you to whom they lent your money. Every time you check your account, the bank will show you that your money is still there and you can withdraw it whenever you want. So, if your money is still in the bank, where did the bank get the money to lend to someone else? This is called fractional reserve banking. Banks are required to keep only 10% of the deposits and can lend out the rest. For every $1,000 you deposit in the bank creates another $900 and lends it to someone else, making the total amount $1,900. The bank created $900 out of thin air. It's not as complicated as you might think, as it's just numbers on a computer. Number 3. You can make money by borrowing from banks and investing elsewhere. In July 2012, Mark Zuckerberg, he bought his Palo Alto home for $5.95 million, which is 5 kilometers from Facebook's headquarters, with a 30-year mortgage. At that time, he was 28 years old and was the 40th richest person in the world, with an estimated net worth of $15.6 billion. The question is, why would he take on debt when he has billions of dollars and could easily pay for it if he wanted to? He could buy a dozen $6 million homes in cash without any problems, so why get a mortgage? The answer is simple: free money. It sounds incredible, I know. Who would give you free money when you're already a billionaire? I mean, why would someone give free money to someone else unless it's charity? It all has to do with interest rates. Remember when we talked about banks that offer such a low return on investment that it's not worth leaving your money with them, as it doesn't even keep up with inflation, meaning you're losing money? Well, in this scenario, it's the opposite. The inflation rate in the United States was between 4.5% and 6%. So any money you borrow that is below the inflation rate is considered free money. Zuckerberg's mortgage rate was just above 1.05%. If you do the math, the bank is the loser in this situation because the mortgage rate is below inflation. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. As an example, let's say you borrow $1 million at a rate of 1.05%. The average savings account interest rate was 2.4% before the pandemic, and now it's less than 1%. But let's use the 2.4% for illustration purposes. So, even if you deposit that $1 million in another bank, you would end up earning $24,000 per year, while you only have to make a monthly payment of $10,500, 5%, to the bank that lent you that money. Imagine if you did this with $100 million or even $1 billion. When you can borrow for free, it doesn't make sense to tie up your own money, when you can use it for more profitable ventures. Of course, we're talking about small amounts regarding money. This may not make sense because the difference is not that significant. However, when it comes to large sums, playing around with a 1.05% rate could potentially mean not only tens of thousands of dollars, but hundreds of thousands. Number 4. The richer you are, the lower the rate you can get. Remember that banks are not charitable organizations. They are businesses like any other, with the goal of maximizing profits and shareholders to whom they are accountable. If your business model is not profitable, it won't survive. That's why they feel much safer lending money to the wealthy than to the poor. When you're a billionaire, the bank can rest easy because there is no doubt that you can repay your loan. In case something happens and you can't make your monthly payments, you can easily sell part of your company to pay off your mortgage. This makes lending money to the wealthy nearly risk-free. In fact, this is how the banking system developed over the centuries, where banks only worked for and with the nobility, or people who had money or assets that constantly generated income, such as land. Compare that to an average employee who might get sick, be unable to work, or simply lose their job. If you're barely making ends meet, lending you money is extremely risky. I know it's easy to criticize the banks for this, but think about it. Would you feel safe lending money to a friend who barely makes a living or to a friend who has a business? It's probably the latter, as harsh as it may sound. So, if you want to get a lower mortgage rate or a lower credit card rate, simply improve your financial conditions when borrowing. First, you need to improve financially. Banks also offer such low mortgage rates to build strong relationships with wealthy individuals so that when they need a larger loan, they turn to them. It's a win-win situation. Technologies like blockchain and cryptocurrencies promise to change that and democratize banking. They will probably do so to some extent. In fact, banking has been democratized to the point where everyone has access to financial services. Compare that to 100 years ago. Number 5. Credit cards are the bank's atomic bombs. 70% of Americans with credit card debt acknowledge that they won't be able to pay it off this year. Think for a moment about what that implies. Credit card debt is not like your mortgage. It's not 3.5% per year. It's probably more like 20%. If you can't pay off your credit card debt on time now, what makes you think you'll be able to pay it off in a few months when that debt has grown even larger? In other words, 70% of Americans are about to fall into the debt trap. More than half of the respondents, 56%, say they have had credit card debt for at least a year, and most will continue to carry it over the years. Nearly 20% estimate that it will take them more than 3 years to pay off their debt, while approximately 8% say they don't know when they will be able to settle it. And that's how banks often make fortunes, because most people spend without thinking about how they will pay it back. They're used to a certain lifestyle and are willing to maintain it, even if they can't afford it. That's why banks keep calling you to offer a new credit card. Don't get me wrong, using credit cards responsibly is excellent for improving your credit score. But if you are not financially responsible, then you should not fall into the debt trap. If you liked the video, you will definitely like this other video that is specially made for you. Now give this video the like it deserves and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already.